Hello, I'm Aaron, the Dungeon Master Dad, and welcome to episode 6 of the Adventures of Logan and Reagan. I have a lot of really cool things to show you today. In episode 6, we are going to start our infiltration of the temple, Logan, Reagan, and their friends. And so there were a few things that happened about this time in the game. We started using this in the game. Let me show you. I had one of these many years ago that my sister got me, and this time around when Logan and Reagan and I started playing, my wife ordered another one for me. So this is our game board, 1-inch grid of squares that we use every time we play. So at this point in the game, as we're starting to actually infiltrate the temple, this is where we started using minis. And let me show you the characters. Now, I have a few minis left over from when I used to play when I was in high school. I never was into painting them. But I also bought a Star Wars game that went along with the Star Wars role-playing game. So I had some Star Wars figures as well, and those were pre-painted plastic figures. And so we were using a lot of those. And then as my best friend Greg found out that I was playing Temple of Elemental Evil with the kids, and we played Temple of Elemental Evil in high school together. He sent some really nice minis for the kids. Specific ones to what he knew their class and race were, and then some generic ones that were nice for all the characters. So I'm going to show you the ones that we used initially for each of these characters, and then for some of the ones that were what they were replaced with. So, my notes over here on what they were. So this is what we used for Monty. Now, I've introduced all the characters to you earlier in this series, and now you're going to get to see what the actual mini looks like. This is not what the character looks like by any means, because this is a battle droid bodyguard for General Grievous from Star Wars Episode 3. That's Monty, okay? Because he has a cloak and a staff, Monty is not a robot, okay? But that's what we use for Monty in the game. Now, who's next? Otis. Otis has one of my favorite figures. Okay, this one is Otis. Okay, there's Otis, and okay, Logan has a wolf named Fang, and here's what we used for Fang. It's because it was, long, forward to back like a dog would be. Fang is Lightning McQueen. Okay. Bingo, the halfling, was initially where is he? And by the way, when we get into battles with orcs or bugbears, they tend to be stormtroopers or battle droids. Okay. My dice out of the way. Okay, here is Bingo, originally. Whoop, get it over to the cameras on the other side. Bingo, focus, Jawa, right? Until the minis that Greg sent showed up, and then after that, that's Bingo. Like giving it a second to try to focus. Now, Logan initially used this figure. Kind of obvious reasons. The hero, right? Now this is the one since Logan got a figure that was actually an Elven Ranger, this is the one that Logan likes to play with and pretend is him, even though he doesn't actually have a character sheet yet. So here is Logan. Now this is the like 2-sword ranger character. That's what the figure had. And Logan's character actually ended up being more of the archer type ranger, but still it is an Elven Ranger. Elmo. This one's kind of funny. This is who we used for Elmo. This is from a Disney Scene It game. It's Mr. Incredible. Okay. Morgan. Did I write? Oh, yes. Okay. Don't particularly know why we picked this figure for Morgan, but this is what we use. This is a separatist commando from Star Wars. And, okay, Reagan initially, because of the robes, she used the Mon Mothma figure at first. We didn't have a Princess Leia, so she used this. And after the figures from Greg showed up, we have an elven sorceress, and she's like casting fire. So that's Reagan now. Okay, Merfolks. Another one of my favorite figures. I think this is the one my friend Greg used back in the day when we played one of our games where he was a female elven rogue. Well, Merfolks is a female elven fighter rogue. So we've got that figure right there. And Yaday, we use this. This would have also been a really good figure for Reagan. But this is what we use for Yaday. Yaday is the cleric of St. Cuthbert. And Shrek is the last one to show you. Shrek is the half-orc fighter who is very low charisma, not a very good-looking guy, a little self-conscious about it, so he always keeps his helmet on. So we got the fighter with the really big helmet. That's Shrek. Okay. So those are the figures that we use from this point on in the game. When we were doing the Moat House, I had actually taken like graph paper and drew some big squares, and we were using coins. Quarter with the heads up was Logan, tails was Reagan, and different coins. And I think we were using gummy bears as the villains, and when they would defeat one, they would get to eat it. The only other, we have, again, a bunch of the other figures that are in here we use as various enemies in the various fights. And then there was also a toy that Hudson, the 4-year-old, liked to annoy me with. So I took it away from him, but I didn't get rid of it because this makes a really, really good black pudding or brown pudding. Anyway, yes, toy poop in my D&D game, but it fits. Okay, so at this point, last week we were in the village of Nob, which is just a mile away from the Temple of Elemental Evil, the actual temple, and we got a password to get in, to go and infiltrate the temple. The characters are going to pretend to be wanting to be recruited into the temple hierarchy as members of the Earth Temple. So, one of the party members, of course, is Yaday. Yaday is a cleric, 6th level canoness of the Church of St. Cuthbert. Now, St. Cuthbert is a fictional god Not in the world of Greyhawk. In the world of Greyhawk, he's quite real. And as a matter of fact, St. Cuthbert is named after a real Earth historical figure, was a saint in the Catholic Church, St. Cuthbert. In the history of the world of Greyhawk, St. Cuthbert was one of the very first two gods that Gary Gygax created for his campaign world. At first, when D&D was created, the cleric was actually invented because it was one of the characters wanted to play a vampire hunter, and so that's where the cleric came from. And it was something halfway between a fighting man and a wizard, which were the two class. Fighter was called fighting man, and the wizard. So something halfway in between. Oh, and wizard was called magic user back then. So halfway between the fighting man and the magic user, who was supposed to draw his power from the gods. But they never talked about what god. So in the campaign at some point, some of Gary's players asked, well, who are the gods in this world? So Gary created two at first. One was called Fultus, the god of light, who I never heard anything else about other than that. And the other, St. Cuthbert of the Cudgel. St. Cuthbert is a sort of lawful neutral god of justice, bordering on lawful good. He's more good than evil, but he's really lawful neutral. And again, he's called St. Cuthbert of the Cudgel because he brings justice by whacking you on the head with his stick. So that's St. Cuthbert. Now, in the history of the world of Greyhawk, St. Cuthbert is the god who intervenes the most in the affairs of men for the forces of good, which is very important to this particular plot. Yade, being a canoness of the Church of St. Cuthbert, is his vessel for defeating the temple. That is who he's going to operate through. So at this point in the story, where they're going to the temple for the first time, Yade reveals to the other characters the dream that she's had. A poem has come to her in her dreams. And within this poem are the secrets to the history of the temple and to defeating the temple. So I'm going to read you this poem real quickly. This is Gary Gygax original. It goes like this. I have it on my screen right here. The two united in the past, a place to build and spells to cast. Their power grew and took the land and people around as they had planned. A key without a lock they made of gold and gems and overlaid with spells, a tool for men to wield to force the powers of good to yield. But armies came, their weapons bared, while evil was yet unprepared. The heart was followed by the crowns and moon and people of the towns. The two were split, one got away. But she, when came the judgment day, did break the key and send the rocks to boxes 4 with magic locks. In doing so she fell behind. As he escaped, she was confined. Among her own, her very lair became her prison and despair. The place was ruined, torn apart, and left with chains around the heart of evil power, but the key was never found in the debris. He knows not where she dwells today. She set the minion's path the way to lift her temple high again, with tools of flesh, with mortal men. Many now have gone to die in water, flame, in earth, or sky. They did not bear the key of old, that must be found, the orb of gold. Beware, my friend, for you shall fall. For you shall fail, it is fall. For you shall fall, unless you have the wherewithal to find and search the boxes 4, and then escape forevermore. But with the key you might succeed in throwing down her power and greed. Destroy the key when you are done, and then rejoice, the battle won. So, what is the interpretation of this poem? The two united in the past are Ayuz the Old, a demigod of the world of Greyhawk. He is a native god to Greyhawk. His mother was a Greyhawk-born evil sorceress. His father was the demon Grazit. I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but I don't think anybody knows how to pronounce Grazit. It's spelled with way more Z's than belong in any word. This Cambion half-demon grew up to eventually become a demigod and a warlord and an emperor of a large area of the world of Greyhawk north of the kingdoms of Voluna and Feriendi. Now, the symbols of the kingdom of Voluna and Feriendi are the hearts and the crowns. And the moon is, I believe, the symbol of Verbank. So the heart was followed by the crowns and moon and people of the towns. This represents the armies that came to defeat the temple. A key without a lock they made of gold and gems and overlaid. There is a golden orb with power gems for earth, air, fire, and water. So the two were split, one got away. Ayuz escaped, but his consort, the demon queen Zuggtmoy, who was the one who helped him build the temple, she broke the orb by taking the 4 gems off and hid them in what it calls boxes 4 with magic locks. These are called the nodes of elemental evil. These are demi-planes aligned to the elemental planes of each particular element. The gems were hidden in them and not in the corresponding ones. The fire gem is not in the fire node. If someone goes into the nodes, they can't get out again, because all of the paths within the nodes that travel to other nodes, but not out. In order to get out, you need to find all the gems. But for reasons that I will explain later, finding all the gems is not enough. You have to have the orb to put them in. And the orb is hidden somewhere in the debris of the temple. Our intrepid adventurers will at some point find it. So, the orb with the gems are going to give the players enough power to defeat Zuggtmoy. And in updating the adventure for 3rd edition, I deliberately fine-tuned the power level of this demon queen to make her powerful enough that the characters, the players, even knowing what level they were likely to be at that point in time, could not defeat her with the power that they were likely to have, but could defeat her if they also had the power of the orb and all 4 gems. Making the plot of the adventure that after exploring all the levels of the temple, they have to go into these nodes, find the gems, and find their way back out again before they can defeat Zuggtmoy. So that's the plan, and over time, they start to understand more and more of what the poem means. All right, now back to this point in the story where they are going to go to the temple. So, get my little notebook here. So they approach the temple compound, and there is a watchtower, as I mentioned last week. And they knew that they could be seen from the watchtower as they were approaching the temple. So there's a big hedge fence around the entire temple. They approach through the opening of the hedge fence, and they travel up to the north end of the temple compound to reach the watchtower. And they make sure all their weapons are stowed, and they walk forward with their hands out so they're not threatening. And they're challenged by the tower guards. They give the passwords that were given to them by the innkeeper in Null. And just find something here, the name of a character when I get to it. Okay. All right, so they've given the name of the, the name of the passwords. So the tower guard leader, he sends out another guard who comes out wearing brown robes because the recruiter from Nold was a recruiter for the Earth Temple. And the guard in the brown robes is going to take the characters in and introduce them to the cleric, who's the leader of the Earth Temple. So there's 4 rival temples within the Temple of Elemental Evil. There's more than that. The main guys down on level 4, clerics of Ayuz himself. But we have a high priest of earth, high priest of air, high priest of water, high priest of fire, all sort of fighting against each other. So it's the high priest of earth that our players are going to join up with. There, I found what I was looking for. His name is Romag. Okay? So the guard's going to come and is going to take them and introduce them to Romag. So the guide takes them through the front gates of the main temple, up to the front gates of the main temple. And here is the player map of the main temple upper level. Okay? Now, this main door right here, they can't go through. The door is barred shut, magical bars, silver glyphs all over the door, gold chains, and you just look at the door. You have to make a saving throw, and if you fail that saving throw, you can't even look at the door ever again. There are 4 doors like this throughout the temple, and what they are doing is that it binds the demon inside. It traps her down in her lair within the temple. And the magic is powerful magic to make sure that nobody can get these things open. So that doesn't stop you from entering the temple, because, as you can see here, there's double doors on this side, double doors on this side, which are normal, and you can just go in. So their guide takes them in there, boom. They go through here, they go to set a stairway going down one side or the other. And they go down to level 1 of the temple. And of course, they didn't have this map yet. They make this map later. But now, this is at a slightly different scale here. This is each square is 10 feet on this scale. And this is each square is 5 feet. So the 2 doors twice as far apart on this. So from here, let me just take a look. Here it is. Okay. So, coming in and going down the corridor through this area here, and then this right here is the apartment area of Romag. So that's where they're taken to have an interview with Romag. So, So they have their interview with Romag. They say, "We want to come. We want to work for you. We're mercenaries. We'd like some pay. We'd like to be part of something bigger." And they're basically pulling a big con here, sort of a bluff. And one of the things that helped them in this is on their way through there. The guard who was with them, warned them. He said, you're with me and I've got a brown robe, so we're not going to get attacked as long as we stay in the brown section. Don't go in the red section or the white section or the green section. We might get attacked by the other temples. It says, but there are some areas in the temple where there are undead who will attack anybody. So you just got to be careful. I mean, that's one of the things that weeds out people who are too weak to be up for this job. But, you know, so many people dead from the battle that occurred here 10 years ago, so much evil magical energy, animating the skeletons and the zombies and whatever. So in this large chamber here, there are a lot of skeletons. Well, skeletons attack. Now by this time, our characters are all 4th level or higher. So with Morgan being 4th level, double the level 1st or 2nd of skeletons or zombies. If they encounter skeletons or zombies, a cleric has the ability to turn undead. And if the cleric is twice the level of the undead in question, the cleric can dispel them, destroy them completely. Except if it's an evil cleric, then they can rebuke the undead or command them into their own service. Now, Morgan is not evil, but she's not good either. She's neutral. She gets to pick which way she wants to channel. Does she channel positive energy or negative energy? Because she worships a goddess of death, I've described her before as sort of a, you know, she's not evil, but she's kind of a goth cleric. She worships a goddess of death. She channels her divine energy in the negative energy way. Well, they went through this area with undead. Yade held back. She didn't want to show what her true power was in front of this guard. But Morgan, she uses her turning ability, and some of the skeletons are now her minions. Well, when we showed up at Romag's apartments with undead minions in tow, okay, clearly this is an evil cleric. These are not good guys pretending to be evil, which they are, but the fact that they have this neutral cleric who channels negative energy helps with the con. So Romag is significantly impressed. He gives them all brown robes, and he says, I'm going to give you a task. Take as long as you need to take to do it, and then come back to me and I'll give you another task. So this first level of the dungeon, of the temple, is very extensive. Okay? I hadn't seen all this yet, but there's a lot to this first level. Somewhere on this first level, there's a kitchen. We want to reclaim this kitchen. Our guards are sick of eating cold food all the time. Find the kitchen. We had some hobgoblins, it was hobgoblins, went looking for the kitchen. They came running back. They wouldn't even say where they found it. They just said there was a really, really big snake. Okay? Find the kitchen, kill a really big snake, so we can reclaim the kitchen. That's your first task. So the characters are like, okay, we're on it. We're going to find the kitchen. And then they left Romag. So, they're going to find the kitchen? Yes, but not right now. Right now, they want to find their way out of this first level and back upstairs so that when they come back down, they can start mapping. You've seen the map that is the result. But they wanted to check the upper works of the temple and see what they might have missed up there, because there's some very important things that are up there. So what they do is they make their way out, they go to the upper temple area, and in one of the, so what you have in here is you have there's like little shrines to the various factions. There's like a little earth altar in here, and a fire altar in here, and a little air altar here, and a water altar over here. And at the north end, there's a throne on a dais with stones on the floor, square stones of alternating colors, red, white, green, brown, representing the four elements. So as they search this area, this upper area, in the one section, they find a cabinet and they find an old white robe, dirty and whatever. They figure they're going to clean that up. And they find some green robes in another section. They find some brown robes. They don't need that. They already have brown robes, but they find some. And they find some orange robes with red flame patterns on them. So they've got a couple of each kind of robe. So the plan starts to come to fruition. They're thinking, okay, if we reach an area of the temple, and they noticed that when they had gotten into the area that was the part of the temple that was the earth temple section, the walls were all painted brown. It wasn't just brown of natural stone. They were literally painted brown. So they're thinking, and the guard who was there with them before, and he's gone back to his tower now, he told them, stay away from the area where the walls are painted green and white and red, because you'll get attacked because you're wearing brown robes. Stay on your own side of the street. Don't be a jet going to shark territory. So the characters are thinking, we get into an area of the temple where the walls are painted green, we're going to take our brown robes off, stuff them in our backpacks, and the 2 or 3 of us who have blue robes, or green robes rather, we're going to put those on, and when we encounter somebody, we're going to say, hey, bring us to the water temple high priest. I'm back from a long trip abroad trying to recruit, and I got a bunch of people here that I want to help, I want to bring in to join the water temple. And they're going to do the same thing with the fire temple. They're going to do the same thing with the earth temple. Their plan is to join all 4 temples at the same time, and to as much extent as they can, they're going to do as many of the tasks that the temples give them to do, with the assumption that since they're fighting against each other, they're going to get commissions from each temple to do stuff against the other temples, so that they will be able to be fighting against the Temple of Elemental Evil and weakening it, and the entire time it seems like the temples fighting against each other, until eventually